everybody, it's Tom Stevens, your resident psychotherapist, here with a very special treat. I cannot wait for this. We are going to have a sit-down conversation with Dax, an artist we've reacted to before on this channel, and now we get to go behind the scenes to hear about his life, his personality, his music, just everything we need to know about Dax. We've reacted to Dear God, Joker, Joker Returns, and now Dear Alcohol, which we are going to talk about today. You know we talk about addiction. We are trying to spread mental health awareness to the world through music and lyrics, and Dax fits right into that mold. I can't wait for this. I'm super excited for it. Without further ado, let's get into this. Dax, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today to share, number one, your knowledge, wisdom, your skill, your experience, and just who you are as a person to the world. Like, this behind the scenes look is so cool. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. I've been seeing your stuff. I think for the past couple of months, I think it might have been the Joker reaction that popped up or something. I was like,
that's right.
Just me being so fascinated with psychology, I was like, oh, it's going to be a cool way to listen to a reaction, you know?
That's right. Joker,
to connect.
Joker Returns, and now Dear Alcohol. Like, I mean, what a variance. Like, I have so many questions for you today. I'm going to get as many as I can in, because I know people want to hear as much as they can about you. But I'll tell you, when I saw Dear Alcohol and reacted to it, like, the first thing that came to mind, honestly, I've been a mental health professional, over 25 years. So doing therapy with people, and I've seen a lot of teenagers, I've seen a lot of young adults. And the one thing I've done literally for 25 years is always ask young people what their favorite music is. And I have them bring it into session and we listen to it. And many times it's not what I normally listen to, but you know what I do is I listen to the lyrics. And I think, you tell me what you think, but I think younger people, teenagers and young adults, actually get feeling connection from music, and words are put to their life experience. In other words, their life comes to life through your music.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would say it was about, I always knew that music created the soundtrack to people's lives, but it wasn't until I was about like 21 and had transferred from the University of Montana to Newman University that I was actually like, okay, this is the soundtrack to life. So I got to choose it carefully because I'm living my life to this music, and music is everywhere. And I think, like, it's, for example, you hear a song and it brings you back to a certain time in your life. So once I started making music, I was like, man, if I could create the perfect soundtrack to people's lives that'll like lead them in the right direction and still be like fire at the same time, it's like, then you're just connecting on a whole new level. So yeah, that makes sense how, kids really attach to it like that.
They really do.
And some people get stuck in like, listening to the same music for years. Like whatever you listen to your 20s, often you continue listening to throughout the rest of life,
Right. I think people ask me that all the time about what's the reason we listen to certain music that we listen to. And a lot of times I say it either elicits a feeling in you that's comforting that you can connect to, or it gives you a mood, puts you in a mood that you're trying to be in. Because I hear some people say, I won't listen to this particular music as much because it makes me depressed. And when I was really depressed in my life, that's what I listened to. So they actually get away from it. But other music people connect with, and it reminds them of, it's a trigger to past experience, right? Things we've been through.
Right.
Yeah. I think that, two things strike me, Dax. I'm going to do a judgment thing of you right away, which is hopefully a good judgment, but just seeing the videos I've seen of you and just seeing you generally on YouTube, two things that come out right away to me are, number one, you seem very competitive as a person, like a spirit of competitiveness, and which, by the way, is good for an artist, I would think. And number two, you seem very compassionate, like understanding. Anytime I've seen you on a live stream, anytime I've seen you talking to people, you seem very gracious. You seem very appreciative. You seem compassionate to people who are broken or people who have been through struggles, because it must come from, I think it either comes usually from people's family or it comes from their life experience. But tell me how accurate or not those two things are.
I think that's pretty accurate. I'm definitely extremely competitive. Like I've only ever made two decisions in my life, and that was to play basketball and now to make music. And I, like, for example, basketball, I chose it because obviously I loved it, but I only committed that hard because I felt at that time I could be one of the best ever. I was 10 years old and I was like, okay, well, I'm 11 right now. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life or whatever it is. I'm about, 5'8", there's a chance I get to 6'4". And I was like, if I get to 6'4", it's over for these people. But then I got about 16 and I never hit 6'4". Or when I was 18, I peaked at about 6'2". Went to three different colleges in 4 years, but still loved basketball. But there was an understanding in my head that I genetically wasn't predisposed to be the greatest basketball player of all time. Still athletic and all that stuff like that, but just not at that level.
It's really
So
interesting
then music
because,
came around.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And then I said the music came around, and then
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, well, I can make an impact with this. And after writing that, I was like, I think I can be one of the best to ever do this, poetical wise, in the way I have with words. So the competitiveness came out in that. So I would agree, I'm super competitive.
It's so interesting because I have an uncle that played professional baseball, and when I talk to him about his story, he says, "Tom, honestly, 1% of high school athletes go on to play college ball, and 1% of those athletes go on to play professional ball. When you look at the statistics, it's unbelievably hard at each level. College is brutally hard, like as much as people want to play sport, you are in the group of 1% of athletes that make it to that point. And then to go to the next level, it's that much harder. But the reality is, the way you just told that story, Dax, you were competitive in no matter what you do. So you channeled that energy into, and I've worked with a lot of higher level athletes in my career for peak performance and getting them to get to that next level. And your spirit, your drive you just talked about is exactly what it takes. If I'm not going to do it here, then I'm going to do it here. I'm going to find a place to channel that energy. So incredible. And I think it leads to your diversity, like what you can do as an artist. And when I heard Dear Alcohol, first thing I said, I probably said it in the reaction, but I know I said it to myself. This sounds like a country song, which I grew up on country music here in Texas. I knew a lot of that, but it sounded like a relatable song to anybody. And when I heard the words, which I'll get into, it was even more powerful. But what made you create the song the way you did as opposed to a traditional rap song?
Right. So, the first thing is that whenever I hear a beat, I never choose how the song is going to sound. I always just say what comes to mind first. So that's the first thing. So, I would say I didn't choose it, it chose
Wow,
me.
cool.
Then on the other end, I have songs that sound like that. They've just never come out before. And then also just my upbringing. Like, I was born in Newfoundland, which is a rock, in Canada. So I'm a Newfie. I've lived in Montana. I've lived in Wyoming, Kansas. I spent a lot of time in Mississippi because my dad worked there. So like I feel like I've just been around that a lot, not only like, Canadian, there's sort of like a crossover between like Canada and like country,
Mm-hmm.
like that. And even my first artist name was almost Cowboy, ironically. I ended up going with Dax though. But yeah, that's sort of just like my little tone singing voice. If I'm not pushing my voice at all and I'm just, so yeah, I didn't, it just came out like that. And I wasn't mad at it.
It tells a story. And like, I want to go back to that other point I said about the two pieces, competitiveness and compassion, because that story, like, just gave so much compassion in it of just, I understand what can happen in life. And I think so many people can relate to that. But tell me about the compassion you have for broken people to create a song like this that speaks to so many.
Shit, my experience with alcohol, I wouldn't even, it's weird. I wouldn't say, like, when I go into making a song, I don't know if compassion is on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's more just like, okay, well, like sometimes, like when I made the song Dear Alcohol, I was like, okay, I have a problem because I know that I feel like a lot of my songs come from a place. And sometimes I finish making a song and I'm like, damn, how did I make that? And then like, it'll be over and I'll be like almost shocked that I made it. So my initial reaction is like, okay, well, you need to stop drinking. So I don't know if it came out of a place of compassion or out of a place of just like I need to make a change in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fact that people end up relating is just a blessing that also helps quantify me making a change as well.
That's really
That's why,
interesting. Like, where do
yeah.
you know the point which you realize you've made that switch and was like a determination of, I've got to do something? Do you still remember that?
Yeah, when I finished making the song was when I was like, okay, now I need to make a change. Like I'd been known and felt it for a while, and I like always like thought like, dang, like pretty much drink every day now. Like like what's like you're just gonna do this forever? And my mom had said something,
Wow.
and so yeah, I knew I needed to make a change in my life. When I was drinking every day, I was just like, oh, well, you're fine. Because I still work out like a monster. I'm gymming twice a day, going crazy. So it's like, well, I'm still killing it. So why do I need to slow this down if it's not affecting my work output? Because it really wasn't, So, but once the song was made, it was almost like I felt like God was talking to me. So I was just like, okay, I got to prepare myself now, because if I decide to put this song out, I'm going to have to make a change.
That was exactly what I was thinking. If you are going to put it out there, you're going to have to walk the talk. You're going to have to produce the result of what you're saying. Otherwise, you're not genuine and you're not the guy that you're trying to be. That's really well said. There's a statistic. I don't know how exactly accurate it is, but it's been pretty accurate for a long time, that in 12-step programs like AA and stuff, that it's like a 7% success rate. So 93% of the people that enter a 12-step program do not succeed, do not recover. And that leaves 7% of people who actually change their lives and keep it changed, which shows how daunting it is and how hard it is. But this song, like when I saw, Dax, the response of people, and you did the remix thing where everybody was putting their own verse in, it's like everybody was telling their story about their life mixed in with your song, which obviously means many of them who have changed their lives, many of them who have made a difference. And I mean, wow, what did that say to you when you started seeing all of this response to that?
To me, it was amazing. It was honestly, I thank all those people, because I compared people like asking like, oh, well, how did you stop? Because like you said, the conversion rate for, something like AA, you said it's 7%.
Yeah.
For me, I compared in my brain, this is the first time I've ever said this, so I'll interview myself and have these talks with myself or whatever it is. I compared I treat my music almost like mini pregnancies, so I'm making this song, cultivating it, and there's a long period of time that no one hears it. It's just me hearing it. So I get to sit on the song. I pretty much only listen to my own music, and I listen to it on repeat because I'm just embodying the creation of the song. And then all of a sudden I give it to the world. I have birth. You know what I mean? So it's like during that time, let's say a mother's pregnant, that 9 months, that baby in her stomach is usually enough for most women to like stop little bad habits, like stopping to drink, or maybe stopping that weed pen because she's having the baby. So I almost compare like the power of everybody adding to this song and everything that's come with it, almost like me being like, wow, the weight of this child is so much mentally that it's been easy for me to not drink because of all the outside influence,
Yep.
So
I say that in my job a lot because, if I'm going to go in and help people with a mental health issue, an addiction, anything like that, and I'm not that myself, and you see me at a restaurant yelling at my kids or treat my wife bad, or we had one guy on a live stream who said, "Hey Tom, I saw you at Kroger the other day, but I didn't want to come up and say hi." And I'm like, was I acting okay? I was with my wife, and I'm like, I really feel that in my life that it does help to be around so many people that have so many issues in life, because it helps me stay on track too, just like you said. I mean, it's very well said.
Right.
Yeah.
It's accountability, and I think that comes from even just playing sports, being held accountable, so.
That's a pretty good point, because you talked about being the best you can be at anything that you do. And that's part of being a leader. Like Rick Warren said, who wrote Purpose Driven Life, he said, leaders create more leaders. Wannabes just create more followers, And so if you're a wannabe, you're just going to create followers to follow you around. But if you're a leader, you create more leaders. You actually lift other people up. And I think that's part of this song. You lifted people up by allowing an open verse for them to be able to sing to. And I think that's the beauty of social media. I talked about like the negative sometimes of social media, but it's the beauty of it. It lets people release their voice. But why addiction? Like why alcoholism, addiction? Why that specific thing with this song? Was it just timing for you? Was it something you'd been planning?
Yeah, it's just divine intervention, man. I was in the studio in my room. Lex played the beat, and I just went, I got wasted because I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. And I was like, wait, is this the Dear Alcohol song? Because I already had the poem. Mind you, I wrote the poem 5 years ago. I used to take mental health walks while I was playing basketball and doing the overnight janitor thing. And I
Hmm.
would, either walk to the mall or I'd walk to the liquor store in Wichita, Kansas. And I mean, like this was like $1 something. I would buy this like bottle cleaner, poison, and just take it back to my room, sip it periodically. I call it periodical sippage, and just write poetry while I sipped alcohol periodically. Sometimes instead of like going out to the bar or whatever or the college parties. So yeah, I had that poem. There was no rhyme or reason. It just came out when I heard the beat, and then I was like, wow, this is finally the Dear Alcohol song,
Hmm.
and that was
Wow.
it.
That is so cool. I talk about all the time when it comes to addiction, it's very important for people to know, especially the young people I talk to, that there's kind of a line. And in the beginning is experimentation, like anybody. And a lot of people experiment with different things in life because there are a bazillion different addictions, right? But there is an experimentation phase where people try something. Then after that, there's a line, and then there's a problem phase. And that's where things start to get out of hand.
Mm,
We're not doing things it's affecting our daily life. But it's not an addiction yet. It's just something that is really creating a speed bump and a hazard for us. And then there's the final line, which crosses over into addiction. And once you're into the addiction phase, you cannot go backwards. The other phases you can. So if you're in a problem phase of doing something, that's why people go to college sometimes and go crazy and party. And then all of a
mm,
sudden they stop. It's because they were in that problem phase, but it didn't become a full blown addiction. Addiction means, the old saying is like, once you're a pickle, you can't be a cucumber anymore, right? So cucumbers start, once
right.
they're cooked, they're a pickle, it's done. And you cannot go backwards. But the way you describe it in this song is describing the progression of what happens to people. Like I try to become
Mm,
somebody else because I don't like what I see when I look in the mirror, but I do like the one that I see once I'm drinking. And it becomes this endless cycle of, I have to keep chasing that high to be able
right.
to feel okay about myself. Otherwise, reality slaps me in the face. Man,
Right.
powerful. Oh my gosh. And for you, like, do you get much feedback? You've got to get a lot of feedback from people that are hurting, that are lost, that don't know what to do, that don't know how to get help. What do you do with that?
Oh yeah, man. I get especially with the type of like music I make, when you got songs like Joker out there and the Dear Gods and all these songs, like, it's I wouldn't say overwhelming, but it's just, it's a lot of people really voicing, different struggles and stuff like that. And I think it's powerful. Um Definitely sometimes it's a lot to deal with, but I think it's good. I think it's good that people share. And I enjoy listening to people's stories. And I've always been, from since I started this journey, like I go through my DMs a lot
Hmm.
and just reply to people and hear their stories and for advice. So yeah, I low key forget what the question was.
Well, it's just about how you deal with, you got a lot of people that look up to
All
you,
right,
that want help, and sometimes they don't know what to
right,
do. And you're kind of, you've helped them through your music. And just even hearing a
right,
comment from you means the world, I'm sure. It's a lot.
right. Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot. I think what I do a really good job of is not putting too much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
For me, social media really is, it's a button. Following somebody is clicking a blue button. Replying to somebody is 5 seconds. So I've like, they say it's like brushing, your teeth is a lifestyle. It doesn't even feel like work. Replying to people so long, going through DMs, liking
Right.
comments on YouTube, interacting with people, just trying to make sure that I stay in my mind normal, like livable mind state and not let everything going on confuse me.
Right.
So I'm just stuck there and it doesn't feel super crazy. It just feels like I'm just doing what I've always done.
Yeah.
Someone talks to me, reply. Someone asks me to follow me, sure, I'll click a blue button. I don't care. Like it's just I try to simplify it. I call it simple complexity.
Well, and that's staying grounded and having good character and just trying to be a good person. You can't meet everybody's needs, but you can do the best you can.
Right.
I feel that a lot of times.
Right.
I mean, my nature with what I do is to help people, and I've been able to help people kind of one at a time in my office, but I can only see so many. But here I'm in touch with thousands of people that all have questions or want help or can't get help. And I, man, early on, I had to really like pull myself back from there's only so much I can do, and there's only so much time in the day. Otherwise,
Right.
I'm no good to other people if I can't have self care and take care of who I am too. Same thing.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think about mental
Facts.
health? Like just in general?
I think it's valid. See, me being, I guess, Nigerian, coming from like a Nigerian family, a Nigerian background, like a lot of that stuff doesn't necessarily exist,
Yeah.
in terms of like the way I grew, and just like the culture, So it's sort of been a new thing
Hmm.
for me. I've never attributed the way I thought to being a problem. I think being in music probably like quantifies whatever problems you did have. If you had anxiety before you start making music and doing this, it's gonna be times 10. So it's forced certain deal with certain things, but I think mental health is a valid thing, and I think there are chemical imbalances in the brain. All of our brains are not the same,
Hmm.
so there has to be. And so, yeah, I think it's important. I think especially for men,
Hmm.
uh, not especially for men, it's just for women. But I mean, like me being a man,
Yeah.
I know it's hard for us as men to like go places and sort of talk about these things. So I
Yeah.
feel like my explaining the way like the brain works through these songs allows people to like someone's listening, you know.
Yep. And I think it's
So
in a safe way too, being able to hear a song
right,
that's put out and relate. So many men will cry in their car or by themselves listening to a song where they wouldn't out in front of other people. And I'm a big proponent of talking to men, Dax, about being leaders, about pursuing the women they're in relationship with, about being able to be available to their
right,
family. And available means not just physically present, it means emotionally connected to their children and their spouse and the loved ones that are around them. And being available as a man is not, I mean, there's been a breakdown to me, at least in our country, in the last 20 years of the family. And so it's kind of been redefined.
I agree.
And a lot of times children grow up not having an identity of a family and what that means. And for me as a guy, like I'm a dad who's been in the mental health field, which is really right, like 90% women, I think. And to be able to talk to men about it's okay to be vulnerable and you can learn how to do that with your children, with your spouse, and with other guys you're around. And the more you find people who are willing to go there, Dax, the more that you actually will. But a lot of times guys hang around other guys that won't go there. And so it keeps them
Right,
protected. It's kind of an emotional barrier we put up to where now I don't need friends or I don't need people like that. And it stunts us. It keeps us distant from any kind of close connected relationship. And I think we've learned that. Like I'll tell you for a fact, Dax, 25 years ago, what we knew about the brain was nothing compared to what we know now. So we actually can see what
oh
trauma
wow,
does to the brain. We can see what key adjustments in life. They can actually go into the brain now and see where a trauma happened, like how old you were when there was a trauma that happened in your life.
wow,
And that can be a divorce, that can be a death, that can be abuse, that can be neglect, abandonment. It can be so many things that have happened in people's lives. And that's why we talk about addiction. And if somebody's a teenager and they start using, that if they stop using, start at 15 and stop at 25, their brain emotionally is still 15 because it gets stunted for that whole time and they have to go back and kind of
wow,
regrow up that time. Yeah, you actually stunt things if you're using actively and then it can catch up eventually, but it takes a long time. So that amount of years we've used for people, it's like it takes a long time to recover that.
wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
there's a lot to it. And I wondered with your music, because when you talk about Dear God, or you talk about Joker, or you talk about Dear Alcohol, like you're always sending a message, I think. But what impression do you think people get of you? Like here's an example Nick and I did, my son,
Right,
one day in the kitchen. We played Dear Alcohol for my wife, Jill, who really doesn't listen to any of this music. And she was like, all right. She's kind of digging it, getting into it. And then Nick put on Joker. And, and as we said, we didn't tell her anything. We said, what do you think about this? And she's like, first of all, I can't understand any of the words that are being said. Second of all, it sounds really intense. Like it was, and we said, what would you think if I said that was the same person? And that really does show how people can get an impression, right? Judging a book by its cover.
Right.
What impression do you think people have of you?
I think it depends on what they hear first. You know what I mean? Or who they hear it from. I think, I've always said, like, how you're introduced and who introduces you matters. If I speak poorly on a person to someone who's my friend, when they hear the first time, they're already going to be like, so yeah, if someone stumbles on, joke for the first time, remember, this is an angry young man, he needs to seek help, and then if they hear Dear Alcohol, it's just like, this is smooth. I like this. So I think people get all types of impressions from me. I don't know if there's ever been like, an artist who can go from singing Dear Alcohol to rapping Joker, then to My Heart Hurts, then to Dear God, then to like all these different spectrums of stuff. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know. They probably just have a lot of different, but I don't know. They have their opinions. There's nothing I can do about it.
But it's such a wide range for you. Like it shows your versatility, like you said, of being able to do different things. And you were singing. Like I can appreciate so much the singing part of you putting out a song that not only spoke lyrics of like, wait, you can drown yourself in this all you want, but it's just hiding from the truth. It's hiding from who I want to be as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a man. And it really spoke to, I think, so many people that you can either keep doing it, but you're not fooling anybody. Like this is just why you're doing it. And that's where alcohol can go with some people, that they maybe heard it in a new way from you.
Right. Yeah. I think like after I wrote that song, I was like, wow, this really breaks down like the whole thought process. Like someone's drinking, like once I wrote that first line, I was like, wow, I got wasted because I didn't want to deal with myself. And I was like, wow, that's so simple but complex at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is my theory. That is a simple complexity. That is I don't know if that's an actual theory, but I just like that.
It's true. Like you broke it down by saying, you know what? It's kind of like that mirror. I'm having such a hard time looking in the mirror that if I take this drink, it lets me see another person and I become somebody who I wouldn't be sober. And when you walk around with that and realize, I always say with people, so many addicts that I've worked with, when you go into a 12-step meeting to try to get help, to try to change your life, your addiction is out in the parking lot doing push-ups. That's what I heard years ago, which was so fitting because your addiction's out there getting stronger as you're trying to get well. So when you go back to your car, it's going to be facing you. There's a problem. There's a fight there. You might have your boss yell at you at work. Your spouse may yell at you. You may lose your job, and it's waiting for the opportunity to seize you because your addiction is so much stronger than you are if you allow it under the right set of circumstances. So if we can visualize that, it's out there waiting for you. And that's why we say you never get cured from an addiction. If it gets experimentation problem all the way to addiction, it doesn't get cured. It just gets recovered where people can realize I can never do it again. If you're in the problem phase, you can still drink and be okay with it once it's under control. And under control means I'm not using it to cope with the life problems I have, but you've got a lot of pressure in your life. I just want to know what you're around day to day when you're traveling, touring, recording, because you have to see all kinds of people using, acting out, living crazy lifestyles. Oh gosh.
Yeah. So the pandemic really slowed everything down for me. What happened was this. So I was because I was playing college, mind you. So I started drinking at 17. First time I drank, I was in my basement about to go to my first party as a 17-year-old because I didn't party at all during high school except finally went stable. So I sat in my basement the first time, and I had a Heineken. I'm very like brainy, you know what I mean? So I wanted to drink for the first time by myself because I wanted to sit and feel exactly how the changes in my brain started when I took that first drink, So I sit there with the Heineken, I take a sip, I drink. I do it sitting down because I heard it hits you harder. So when I start getting rush, I start standing up. The first thing I noticed was like, oh, I actually realize I'm blinking right now. That was like the first thing I noticed. Like I'm blinking. I know I'm blinking.
Mm-hmm.
Then I end up going to my first high school party. You know what I mean? And I was just so social. You know, all the and like I used to be like, nah, I was just like, shy. I used to be shy and shit, even though I played basketball. But I was just so social, talking to everybody, and everyone was so shocked. Daniel, bro, your first bro, whoa, 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 whoa. You know what I mean? And then that became the process of me trying to chase that man, become as confident as he was for that period of time. And it was all cool during like that whole all the college time because it's like, well, I have practice every single day of the week and can't drink during the week because I'm playing basketball. So it would just be a thing, every weekend in college. But then once I started making music, there was no set structure to life. It was just like, yo, every day is basically Saturday. Every day is the weekend. Even now, there's no like, I don't know what day it is. So then I go, my very first tour, the very first time I toured was with Tech Nine, like off the jump and never performed before. And I on 55 shows, and I'm just like getting dropped the vodka, because tequila is the natural plant agave. You won't get the hangovers, blah, blah, blah. It's more of an upper, you know what I mean? I had the whole conversation. So I was drinking every day. Then I go on my own American tour right after that, drinking every day. Then I go Canadian tour right after that. Boom, drinking every day. So my first year of touring, I did the most shows. I did 100 and something shows, drinking before every single one.
Wow.
Not to mention 8 before that, I was going to all these events every night, just trying to network and drinking at all those. So that whole period, it was like a whole year and like a half, just like pretty much drinking. Hey, get off the Canadian tour, the pandemic hits. And now I'm just like by myself. And I'm like, oh, well, what am I going to do? So I'm drinking while I'm doing all this tedious work every day. So all of a sudden the pandemic goes, I look up and I'm like, yo, when was the last time I haven't drank in like 2 or 3 days? And I was just like, yeah. So yeah, that's when, and then that led up creating this song.
Wow. But you said something earlier. You said, my mom said something to me. So
Right.
what was that key? Like what happened there?
So after the Canadian tour, I'm at home, and basically like, because alcohol was never getting in the way. So like I would wake up and just have like, let's say a couple shots of tequila, and then I would do like 500 push-ups, or whatever. So like, being at home, my mom would like, clean my room, it's like, how mothers do, and then she like found my, my bottle, then she calls it the dark drink. So she was just telling me like, oh, you can't be doing this and all the stuff like that. So that was my first like, oh, wow, my mom's saying it to me. Okay, so,
Was that enough? Or was there still time after that?
No, that wasn't enough because I like for me, alcohol wasn't getting in the way of my productivity. It was almost like, so like, let's say like if I was when I would do push, it was like, wow, I could do more push-ups because I feel it less. So I would like, let's say take a shot and then try to bang out like 150 in a row. So it was almost like a additive to the monster that was my obsessive personality when it came to working. So, but I just had to, that like, like even now I go harder, but I was just so stuck in that cycle that I felt like I needed it.
Yeah.
I
think that's one of the things that sneaks up on a lot of people. Some people have a lot of history in their family of addiction or using, and so it's a natural, they're predisposed to it. But other people, it just kind of sneaks up, whether it's people you work with or friends you hang out with, and it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. And then all of a sudden it becomes like a regular routine. And most people who I would identify as having an issue with something, they see it as just a normal part of their life, and they don't see how it takes them away. Like you described it so well that, you seem like you like to be like, have some semblance of control, like it's like the basketball court, right? If you're a point guard, I don't know, but
right.
It's like, I want to be in charge of my life and run the plays and handle the situation. I have to be on alert, or a linebacker in football, I have to be alert to what's going on, and you started to feel that little imbalance piece and catch it soon enough. It's amazing that COVID actually helped you, because for a lot of people, it hurt people. It actually brought them isolated,
Oh,
made
COVID
them.
was when I was drinking the most.
Okay. Okay. And then when did it stop then?
It stopped right when I made this song. That
Wow.
was
So,
when
okay.
right.
That's a good point, because I was thinking COVID is what did so many people in, and that makes sense now that you say that was actually the kind of almost friend or companion you have when you're isolated in a place away from the rest of the world. Wow.
Right. Because to me, I mean, alcohol was pretty much everything, when I drop a video or just all the tedious work. So COVID, it was just like, obviously an everyday thing. You just have a couple, drinks here and there throughout the day. And then COVID, I guess, ended. But it wasn't really till about this song, which was when I was like, okay, now it needs to. But I first made the song, I was actually drinking while listening to it in the beginning, almost like getting ready to part ways. Last,
You know what?
So.
I tell people all the time that when you open yourself up and expose kind of where you're at, like you've done with this song, to the world, and you have to walk the talk, right? That when you tell people, anybody who's in treatment, I will say, when you tell people your secrets and you tell them your games, your manipulations, how you get away with it, the way that you sneak out, the way you go use behind the scenes where nobody knows, when you expose your secrets, then you have nothing to hide from anymore. But the trouble is, then you have nowhere to hide. And they get very scared of that. So the fact that you wrote this song and put it out there, I think helps people see that, wow, I can wear this. Like anybody who's recovered from any addiction, Dax, I will say if they've really recovered, they wear their addiction proudly. Like I will talk to you all day about who I've been, what I've been through, the way I acted, the person I was, because I'm not them anymore. I've become a new person. I'm a cleaner version. But the way you said that, kind of that gift from God, I believe that so much, like in my life, that just all of a sudden a blessing comes in and it's like, wow, where did this come from? And I've screwed up so many things in my life that there's got to be a God, because I've screwed up everything and still gotten blessed with what I have. Like I should be somewhere way different than this at this point. But music is coping. And I've said to people a lot, you don't just always need therapy. Like that's not always the fix to things. Number one, because there's not always great therapy out there, to be totally honest with you. And number two, you've got journaling, you've got listening to music, you've got exercise, you've got different hobbies you can do, that you reading books, things that are good outlets to help people feel better about themselves, and they're healthy outlets to be able to use. I mean, how do you feel about that in terms of music as therapy, journaling, exercise? When you mentioned walking while playing basketball, which is a great, bilateral stimulation of the brain, it's a great thing to do. But what do you see if somebody's not getting treatment? How do you see them getting help? What can they do?
I think if you can replace habits, like I'm a habitual person, I do the same thing every day, so it's just like replacing, for me, like for now, I stopped drinking energy drinks too, but I've replaced, that period of time when I used to drink now with like a caramel iced coffee, light cream from Starbucks, so it's like.
We now know Dax's drink.
So yeah, I think if you can replace those habits with something, it's powerful. It's my mom said this to me. She was like, life's tough. Everyone needs something. It's me, like for me personally, I've never done drugs at all. It's just only been alcohol. But it's like we all need something, to get through this crazy life. Is just like you just got to make sure that something isn't going to take you out. So it's like for some people, it's work. I work out like crazy. Just finding different habits, but it's tough, man. Once it gets a hold of you. I think I never got to like the phase where I was like black every day or anything like that. I feel like this song was almost like a projection of where I to end up. Yeah. But within that process of getting there, if I kept going down that path.
This is pretty important, Dax. You make a great point, because we will say in the mental health field, anybody can choose their bottom. You do not have to have bottom be death or prison or on the streets. You actually can choose a bottom, and being able to say, you know what, I think I'm going to shift gears here. I'm going to change my course so that I don't make it any worse than it already is a great message to people, that you don't have to keep going until you completely run out of gas and you're on the street. My wife always says anything in moderation to our kids, like anything in moderation, like just to have balance. And we talk about on reaction therapy, we talk about balance keeps me stable. That when it comes to exercise, eating, and being able to live, staying hydrated, and being able to keep sleep, good rest, staying balanced will help anybody. But many times when people are using, life is completely imbalanced. And I think what they do is they're hiding from a real problem. Like my question always is, what is it that drinking is keeping you from looking at? Like, what is it about your life that you don't want to see if you stayed sober every day? It's not that drinking's bad. There's plenty of people that drink and it's fine. It's that, what is it that this kind of drinking does that you're trying to avoid and run from? And you probably see that all the time in comments, like people that are really struggling. But many times there are people who either don't know what to do or they don't want help. Also, there's a lot of people who, I'm just not done yet. I just have more that I want to do. And I think that's the bad rap that the rap industry gets sometimes, is that it's about drugs and drinking, at least I'm speaking from an older person's view. What I realize now is that every artist I'm looking at and listening to, they actually don't want people to live that life. Like they're talking about how bad it can get, but they want people to live a healthier, cleaner life. And I hear that in a lot of the things that you say. But coping skills are big, right? Like you said, having healthy coping skills can change your life. Other than drinking, you go get your drink from Starbucks. Everybody's got to have something.
Right. I tell people all the time, because they always ask me like my diet and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm just lucky that my favorite food is rice and chicken, because like I could eat that every day, but it's like, that's my favorite thing. So it's just like, I'm lucky that is my addiction when it comes to food.
Yep.
So
that is really good. That is, everybody's got to have something. Mine is chips. I love chips. Can't get enough of chips. But what do you say to, okay, two things. Number one, your favorite verse line from Dear Alcohol. What is the favorite point in the song for you?
The favorite point in the song is like when I rise up and I go like, I'm taking care of these people, but no one takes care of me. I want to talk to somebody, but I feel no one relates. I need. That's my favorite part.
Oh man.
But my favorite words are the hook. Just when you really think about it, I got wasted because I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My feet drowned until I feel all right. I keep drinking until I'm someone I don't recognize. Like, it's so simple, and it's going to mean different things to different people as their life continues to move forward. It's going to get deeper and deeper the older you get, or through your circumstances or what happens to you or people you know. So I like making music like that, where it's like I always felt like it's one thing to be smart, but if you can't explain your thoughts to a 5-year-old, then what good is it to have the knowledge? So I feel like a 5-year-old could listen to Dear Alcohol and take something from it. And then I feel like 100 years old could take something from it.
Yep.
And that's what about the hook.
Yeah. That's really good. I love the part where it's talking about being an example, and that modeling piece of who am I as a person, because I do think that sometimes, especially for men, right? We don't want to say we need help. We don't want to say we're scared. We don't want to say, we don't know how to fix something or handle something. And so we use other ways to cope. And I think learning to be that example. I always tell my boys, I want to be the husband that I want you to be one day to your wife. Or I tell fathers of daughters, like, I want you to be able to be the husband that you want your daughter to have one day, instead of just, pay attention, because our example, and you're an example too, just through creating this. But, a lot of people, I deal with a lot of trauma, a lot of addiction, and a lot of stuff that's happened in people's lives. And I don't think people fully recognize what has happened in their life that's created the coping skills that they have today. And I think, I had a question for you at the end of this video. I thought, why did he take a drink of the alcohol at the end of the video, which wasn't the happy ending, right? What was the purpose of
Right.
that?
The purpose of that is that because this, to me, this song isn't an end all be all. I can't say. I mean, even
Yeah.
I was 4 months sober, and then I ended in a drink, and then now I'm back on the grind again of not drinking.
Hmm.
It's like there's no way I'm going to be able to sustain never drinking ever again. I can't. I'm sorry, I can't do it. You know. So like almost like that. That's what that last shot was. It's like, listen, I'm trying, but I'm about to be your superhero, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. Wow. Well
You
said.
know.
That relates so good. That's awesome. Yeah.
So like I knew putting out this song want me to champion and everything. Like just being honest with myself. I went on my and I had some tequila. You know what I mean? After 4 months, but I did go 4 months, and now I'm back on the grind of not drinking again. But what I did learn was this, because we talked it out before on the vacation, me having a drink, and it was almost like, what's going to happen with this?
Hmm.
And after drinking tequila that day, I didn't feel the emotional attachment that I used to have
Yeah.
to drinking. I was like, okay, so this is a step in the right direction, because the next day I didn't feel the need to drink again. It was associated with that one event that I felt like was needed to celebrate. Okay, now I'm back on the train again. Positive moment for me. So that last drink at the end of that video was like basically like, I'm not perfect,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, and
So
that's
yeah.
that's a great example for people that number one, it's not that easy. You can't tie it all together in a few minutes. It doesn't just come together that easily. It is a grind, it's work. But boy, you were testament there to when I talked about the different phases, right? Of it is possible to actually go back, change, and reverse course, all the way up until that addiction phase where maybe I got into something, but when you take a break, when you restructure your life, and you go back and try it
Right.
again, you realize, hey, it doesn't mean the same thing that it used to anymore. Because a real addict
Right.
would slip right back into that same thing all over again.
Right. See, my biggest, because like I haven't performed in like 2 years.
Hmm.
So my biggest thing is going to be back, because I've never performed fully sober. I did like one time, like, but it was like some random like little thing. You know what I mean? I've always
Yeah.
had like a couple shots before going on stage. So that's where the real test for me is going to come, when I go back on tour and start doing shows consistently, which is starting in November.
All right.
So that's, I'm interested to see like, like how that's going to go.
Yeah. What do you think
So,
about that just sitting here? Like, what instantly pops into your mind about that?
well, my rationalization for drinking before my shows before was I want this to be fun. Like I don't want to feel like this is a job. So like to me on stage, I just like, I mean, I look at performing as a workout. I go up there and I basically run laps, and just my goal is to sweat as much as possible. I do push-up competitions on stage. While I'm on stage, I drink like 4 8 water bottles. It's a basketball game to me. So like I was like, well, I want this to be fun. So let me have a couple shots. So it's like they're gonna enjoy the crowd. So I want to enjoy myself too. So that's for drinking, before I performed. But now that I've stopped drinking, I was like, damn, like I feel like, sober Dax is like more fun and funnier, and to a certain extent. So I'm like, I should get out and see what happens. you know, I don't know. I really don't know. It's gonna be a interesting time. I've been doing this Canadian tour like in November. I think it's gonna be like 4 months or so. I wish I could say what's gonna happen, but I don't know.
I think it's interesting you say that because sober Dax being more fun, because I think once you discover yourself and realize who you really are and that it's okay to really be that person, you become that. I think you're kind of merging that
Right.
identity there, and it's becoming who you are. So I think it's great. I mean, I think you'll make it
Right.
happen the way you need to. So that's incredible. Tell me this
Right.
last piece here. Anything that any message with Dear Alcohol or Dax that you want people to know that you don't think they know?
I don't think they know.
Just some kind of message about this song or a message from you that maybe they don't hear because they get to hear your music, but they don't hear you and your voice. Just any kind of inspiration or any kind of encouragement or hope.
I would say, I don't want to say the cliche, take it one day at a time.
That's already taken. Yeah.
Right. Uh, yeah, you're gonna. I think you're just gonna have to find it within yourself. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Like often, sometimes something needs to inspire you to really want to make that change. For some people, it's a child.
Yeah.
For some people, it's a purpose. For some people, it's your liver fails. And it's tough, but
Yeah.
I just say do your best, man. It's like this life is so tough and up and down. There's so many crazy things going on in the world, and I expect like it's like me being a lefty. Whether people know it, or the world isn't set up for lefties. When I go to that door and I walk and I put my right hand and I open the door, and I think the world as a man, and my music appeals mostly to men because I am a man. I think a lot of music appeals mostly to women because they buy the most stuff. But my stuff appeals to men. I don't think our world is set up to have places for men to go to be able to explain, feel. It's hard. So yeah, I think it's not gonna be easy. And just if you got to wean off of it, take steps. I remember when I was trying to get off energy drinks, I started with, okay, well, let me go I got done with Red Bull and I started drinking. And I got off that. I was like, I'm only going to drink half the can now. Then I would pour the rest out. Okay, now I'm going to drink some Cokes. And then now I'm going to stop that. So find a way to wean off of it. Yeah, just keep going, man.
That's why, that is so well said, Dax, because that is why I tell people having a plan is key. But the way to get a plan, whenever you get into a problem, your brain is the one that got you into the problem. And the way to get out of a problem situation is typically not our own brain. It takes some other thing from outside. And that's why I advocate mental health so much of the time, because when you seek at least a good professional that knows what they're doing, they can help steer things in a way to say, let's think about this, let's look at this, let's be accountable for this. And it lets you have a path to be able to get where you want to go. And you just said, this isn't going to be easy. There's a lot of tough things. And then 12-step programs, they talk about, people white knuckling, like clenching your fists, and you're trying your best to stay sober, and people go 3 or 4 months and then it's like they can't do it. And to be able to stop the white knuckling, just ask for help, get support. It's what we've tried to do at Reaction Therapy, is give a place that it's okay to talk about mental health. It's okay to say things aren't going well. It's okay to want to take a hand of somebody else and actually be led, instead of being the one that always keeps your mouth shut and don't talk about problems. So I appreciate you, number one, writing this song. Number two, the way you wrote it, because I just loved that sound. And number three, being so real the way you are. And I would encourage anybody to see you live rather than just the music, because I think your real self comes out. And I think you are real, relatable, and just like a regular guy when people talk to you. So I appreciate that in you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Dax, I hope this is the beginning. I can't wait for the next song. I can't wait for the concert. I hope you come south at some point down here by us in Texas.
Yeah, no, I'm coming.
I love it. I can't wait. And I hope I get to talk to you again, but you are the best. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being so honest. And thank you for making the music you make.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you, man. Got me blushing over here.
Thanks.
Appreciate you, man.
Oh my goodness. What a time with Dax. He is so real and so genuine and so gracious to take the time to do this sit down, number one. But number two, to be so honest about his life and where he's been and what he's been through and how he relates to alcohol and how he relates to pressures and stress in life. And just to be as real and honest as he is, I think is super refreshing. It's a chance to see an artist in a way we have never seen them before. Dax, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to do this. And I can't thank you enough for making the music that you make, which means mental health matters. I see it in all your music, and we're trying to spread mental health awareness to the world through music and lyrics. Thank you, everybody who's been a part of Reaction Therapy, who has supported our mission all this time and has helped encourage mental health everywhere you go. And I cannot wait to see what's coming next for Dax. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you on the next Reaction Therapy.